Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Guido, and I'm an internal medicine resident in St. Louis. And before residency, I actually served as an admissions committee member for my medical school. And that was kind of an interesting experience because it allowed me to get some behind the scenes insight into what actually goes on in medical school admissions. And as someone who is a first generation Latino American, first generation college graduate, I'm very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And my goal is to get more underrepresented medicine students into medical school. Now, to jumpstart my YouTube channel, I'm going to create a series of videos for specifically URMs on how to get ready for the AMCAS cycle. This video is going to be specifically dedicated to letters of recommendation. And in future videos, I'm going to talk about things like the personal statement, secondary questions, making a list of schools to apply to, all of the fun things that go into applying into medical school. But for now, let's get started with the video. Now, all of you may know this already, but it's March, which means that it's time to get cracking on these AMCAS applications. One of the first things that you need to think about starting is getting letters of recommendation. Now, I know asking for letters of recommendation can be super anxiety inducing. It can be awkward sometimes. You need to figure out who you're going to ask. But hopefully with this video, I can provide you with some general advice on how to get started. Now, the first thing that you should know is that you're going to need at least 2 letters of recommendation from science professors. Ideally, these will be courses that you excelled in and that you've had a relationship with a professor. Think about classes like biology, physiology, chemistry. These are the classes that we typically like to see students perform well in as an admissions committee member. And the overall thing that you want communicated through these letters is how you are a bright learner and how you'll be well equipped to handle the didactics that come with medical school. Now that knocks out the first 2 letters of recommendation. Ideally, you should have 3 to 4 letters of recommendation in total. And the remaining letters are going to be determined by what you did during your pre-med years. Now, if you did really well in a humanities course, you may want to consider asking that professor for a letter of recommendation. Although these letters don't come from science professors, they definitely can speak to your well-roundedness. Remember that medicine is also an art form, and there's a lot of humanities that go into medicine. Now, if you dedicated a large portion of your pre-med years to a specific service initiative, you may want to consider asking the program director for that service initiative to write you a letter. This, of course, will speak to your altruism, your work ethic, and your commitment to your community, which are excellent qualities to have in an applicant. Alternatively, if you conducted any significant research as a pre-med, you would definitely want to include a letter from your principal investigator because this will speak to your intellect, your curiosity, and your perseverance as a researcher. And lastly, if you ever worked with a physician in a meaningful way, something more than just shadowing them for a couple of days, it would be excellent to have a letter from that person. A letter from them would be able to directly speak to how you would be successful during medical school and later as a physician. Now, those are the people that you're going to want to ask for letters. The next question is, how do you go about asking for letters of recommendation? I think that the best way to ask is either in person or through a very formal email. If you're planning on doing it in person, you can simply ask your professor to speak with you after class, or you can, of course, go to their office hours where you're guaranteed to find them. I won't go into too many details on how to draft an email. By this time, you guys should be pros at drafting emails, but just make sure that it's very formal. If you're choosing to write an email, make sure to use proper titles and be very polite in the email. Now, it's very important to use specific language when you're asking your letter writers for these letters of recommendation. You're going to want to use something like, can you write me an outstanding letter of recommendation? Or can you write me an excellent letter of recommendation? This is very important because it ensures that the letter writer is going to provide you with a high impact, excellent letter. If you just ask them for a standard letter of recommendation, they may agree to it, but there's a possibility that they may just produce a standard letter of recommendation that's not going to help your application. Now, if you have any hesitancy or you get any pushback from a letter writer, be very polite, cordial, just move on to the next person and thank them for their time. Now, there are a couple things that you're going to want to include with your request for a letter of recommendation. The first of which is a deadline for when you're going to want that letter back. Make sure that you provide them with kind of a fake deadline that's about 2 to 3 weeks before the actual deadline that you'll need that letter by. You're going to also want to give them a complete CV as well as a draft of your personal statement. This will help them remember who you are and add color to whatever letter they plan on writing. And of course, if there are any specific things from your experiences with that professor or that person that you want to make sure is highlighted in the letter, give them a list of those things. It's not weird to do that at all. If you were the highest scoring person on a specific test, or if you had any other accolades, make sure to remind them and ask if that can be included in the letter. And that's really all there is to it. I know that asking for letters of recommendation can be quite awkward, but it's very important to do it right and to do it on time. You have to remember that letters of recommendation carry a very heavy weight on your application, just like the topic of our next video, which is the personal statement. Anyways, I really hope that this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like, hit subscribe, and until next time, good luck to everyone.